To the dangerous, reckless, and authoritarian statements put forward by Trump, but this latest one was truly next level. He took to Truth Social writing, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning, Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." So let's be perfectly clear about what Trump is suggesting here. That the Department of Defense, or the newly minted Department of War, will now set its sights on the city of Chicago within the United States. Trump is suggesting that he is turning the U.S. military against American citizens. The governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, has been clear about the extent to which this escalation is wholly and completely unwarranted.
Mr. President, do not come to Chicago. You are neither wanted here nor needed here. Your remarks about this effort over the last several weeks have betrayed a continuing slip in your mental faculties and are not fit for the auspicious office that you occupy. Most alarming, you seem to lack any appropriate concern as our commander-in-chief for the members of the military that you would so callously deploy as pawns in your ever more alarming grabs for power.
It's also worth pointing out the fact that there was a recent ruling handed down in California with major implications for Trump's subsequent troop deployments in other states. Newsom sued Trump after he had deployed thousands of troops into this state, and a federal judge ruled against Trump. The White House has not yet appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, but it's likely that they will. But the fact that a trial court has already blocked this effort offers a legal framework for other states, including Illinois, to be able to fight this unconstitutional deployment. And if Trump does decide to appeal the California case to the Ninth Circuit and he loses the appeals court the same way he did at the trial court, then this becomes precedent across the country, which makes for an even more compelling argument against these unconstitutional deployments. But either way, the law is thus far against Trump as it comes to being able to wield the U.S. military against Americans in our own cities. All of which is to say, if and when Trump tries to deploy U.S. troops into Chicago, to the glee of Trump and his White House, just remember that there now exists a framework to be able to fight back. And every subsequent court and every subsequent judge who rules against him bolsters the argument of those states and cities that have become targets for this administration. Here's Mark Elias discussing that point. Mark, how does the recent California victory over Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom sued Donald Trump against the deployment of these troops. Newsom won. We're not sure yet, as of this recording, if the Trump administration is going to appeal, but how does the fact that he's lost this case and therefore lost his pretext to be able to do it, how does that impact the prospect of Trump then deploying troops into yet another state?
Again, this is, you'd think Donald Trump might have learned a lesson from that. But instead, he has just escalated. He's escalated and escalated. And that's what he does. And this is the problem with the way in which too many politicians in this country act like Donald Trump should not be taken seriously. Too many of the legacy media outlets act like that this is just, a minor provocation. They are normalizing the absolutely bizarre, dangerous, abnormal behavior of a raving lunatic. Okay, and we have to start holding our institutions to account to this, because if they are not going to act like this is the dangerous provocation that it is, then what good are they? And so to answer your question directly, look, it is obviously helpful precedent to the extent a district court decision in California is ever going to be precedential to a judge in Illinois. It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But the fact that on the heels of that loss, this is what Donald Trump does.
Right.
We need to wake up and recognize the threat that this country is under.
And let's be clear about why Trump is doing this. There are two reasons, both nefarious, but one that's truly cause for alarm. The first reason is pretty clear on its face. Trump is an autocrat, and autocrats want centralized power and control. By putting his boots on the ground in the cities, he can effectively co-opt power that would otherwise belong to the states. Anyone on the right who claims to be a constitutionalist, a strict originalist, while Donald Trump tramples on the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, is showing their entire ass right now. But then again, I know that that's not exactly breaking news that Republicans are hypocrites. He may very well do what he did in LA, which was to send the troops in, knowing that doing so would incite violence. And it did incite violence here, and he used that as a pretext to be able to retroactively justify his decision. He's not looking to quell any violence, he is expressly looking to exacerbate it. Again, this is another tool very frequently used by fascists and autocrats. But the second reason here is much more worrisome, and if you follow my content, you know that this is something that I've been relentless about calling out. This isn't only about exercising power right now, it is about laying the foundation to be able to do it during the election. Remember, Trump already tried once to seize the voting machines in Georgia. He already tried to block certification of the election in Congress. He already incited an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, but he didn't have the tools in place to be able to succeed. For as horrific as someone like Bill Barr was, he called Trump's stolen election claims bullshit. And of course, he had no one in the states willing to actually carry out his plans, like seizing those voting machines. But we're in an entirely different world right now. Pam Bondi, his new attorney general, won't stop Trump from acting on his bogus stolen election claims. Neither will Dan Bongino or Kash Patel or Stephen Miller. And now, if he's also got boots on the ground in the way of these troops because he's deployed them to the states under false pretenses, and he asks them to do something like seize the voting machines, what's going to stop them? That is why I'm so focused on stopping Donald Trump in his tracks when it comes to these illegal deployments. Because this isn't just about deploying the troops to the states now. It's not just about flexing his autocratic muscles now. This is about laying the foundation to be able to do so when it'll be much more electorally advantageous to him. Here's Mark Elias explaining that exact point yet again.
I believe, and have been saying for some time, that Donald Trump is a dictator, and that we are further along the road of authoritarianism than people want to admit. You know, if you go back and look at what people in Hungary said about their country, they too were very slow to say that Viktor Orban was a full-out dictator. Donald Trump is not deploying the military in these cities because he cares about the people of those cities. He's not even really deploying them for immigration. Now, he has made ICE like what would be essentially the fourth largest military in the world if it was military, all right? So he's deploying a ton of resources around deportations. I believe, though, this whole thing with the National Guard, the deployment of the Marines, is about the 2026 elections and perhaps even the 2028 elections, when he wants to be able to be in control of the ground in which people are voting, particularly in Democratic cities. And so Jim Saxo, who's a reporter at Democracy Rocket, wrote a piece about this. And lest you think this is just something that people on the left are worried about, or someone like me, who's very prominent in the pro-democracy community, is focused on, that article quotes Patrick Eddington, who is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute. And the Cato Institute is, a pretty right-wing libertarian think tank, well respected, but definitely not the kind of organization that usually would agree with my thoughts or would be contributing their input to the Democracy Docket article. And he goes so far as to say that the first place where they may try this is Virginia in the in the off-year elections, the 2025 elections this November, as a dry run.
So I get that the net effect of Trump's deployments and promises of escalation are that we become even more normalized and desensitized to what's happening, but I want to be clear. There is absolutely nothing normal about this, nothing legal about this, and nothing harmless about this. When an American president declares war on his own country, it is beyond clear what's happening here. We wouldn't hesitate for a second to call it out for exactly what it is if it was happening anywhere else in the world. Fascism is here, and the onus is on us to stay engaged, stay activated, stay involved, so that we can fight back while we still have the chance. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.